Welcome into the Blurred Wire. Today we are talking. So it's like the middle of June. No, not the middle of June. We're at the end of June, halfway point through the year. And a lot of other video creators like Sean Chandler is a guy I really love and follow. They're doing their best movies of the year so far list, like kind of a midway point. And so I thought I don't really have enough movies that I've seen this year to even do like a top five midway, top 10 midway through this year. But since we kind of started this year, I thought it'd be cool if we went back to 2023 and did our top movies for 2023 and then maybe came back and did the top movies for 2024 towards the end of the year. So, first of all, welcome in my amazing co-host Ty. How are you doing? How's life been?
Movies. I'm
Movies is
feeling
right.
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling energized and very excited to talk so positively about five movies that I loved from last year.
Right? And I mean, it's gonna be well. I'll get into it once I talk about my top movie because I don't want to give it away too fast. But I guess before we dive fully in,
Hmm.
I'm going to give one honorable mention because I have to at least bring it up
Of
and
course.
say Tourist Guide for Love because it came out on Prime Video I think last year, and it is the cutest rom com I have seen in a very long time, and it is my wife's favorite movie from last year, and maybe one of her favorite movies. I don't know if all time, but it's definitely probably one of her favorite rom coms. And it was the best rom com to me that came out last year by far. So if you're looking for a date night movie, no, it came out on Netflix. Netflix. I think that movie is the reason why she made us get Netflix back because I used to share my Netflix with Ty, and it was like a great arrangement. And then
It
Netflix
was
did
great.
their Wi-Fi thing, and so we went
They
without
shut us out.
Netflix. Yeah, they completely shut us out. So out of spite, because it's the kind of person I am, I was like, no, I'm not going to do Netflix at all for a whole year.
On
And then
principle alone,
on
no Netflix.
principle. And then my wife was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're going to get Netflix back because I want to watch Tourist Guide
Absolutely.
for Love. It was kind
Absolutely.
of like, I'm going to be doing this and it's going to be charging your card anyway. So you can either pretend like you don't know or just get on board because we have it.
Right. I'm just giving you the warning that your card will be charged
Yep.
monthly from now on.
Yep. Yep. So,
If I may also,
uh-huh.
I know originally I said I didn't have something, but I was thinking about it. There is a movie. It didn't come out last year, but it's a movie that I saw for the first time last year that I'd like to throw in as an honorable mention.
Hmm.
Um, 13 Going on 30, starring Jennifer
What?
Gardner with
And
Mark
Mark
Ruffalo.
Ruffalo?
I had never seen it
What?
before, had no interest in seeing it before. I watched it. It is easily a top 10 movie of all time for me. I have watched it, no lie,
Wow.
15 to 20 times last year. I cry every single time. I love that movie so, so much.
That is very funny. That is extremely funny and pretty topical. Have you
It
ever
is such a good movie.
did you see Jennifer Garner as Elektra back in the 2003 Daredevil? And
So yes, I
yeah,
watched 13 Going on 30 and then I went back and I was like, I'm on the Jennifer Gardner
Garner
kick. I was
hype
like,
train,
oh,
yeah.
I never saw Elektra. I'll watch that. I fell asleep multiple times watching Elektra. It
Yeah,
was
Elektra
so
was hard.
boring. I could not get through it. Even though wasn't she also in the Ben Affleck Daredevil
Yeah,
movie
she was in
as
Daredevil
Elektra?
as
Yeah.
Elektra, yeah. Elektra was a spinoff of Daredevil. And it did not do well. Is I don't know if it was going to become its own like universe, but that's probably where they were headed. So I guess, and if you decide to see Deadpool and Wolverine while you're on this Jennifer Garner kick, if you
Mhm.
haven't seen Daredevil, add that, and then make sure you go watch The Adam Project as well on Netflix because Jennifer Garner's in that movie, and the same
Mhm.
guy who directed it with Ryan Reynolds is also directing Deadpool and Wolverine. And apparently, Jennifer Garner is coming back as Elektra in Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not a spoiler because it's well known and well documented that people know that. So,
She
um,
is?
yeah, she is. It's part of
I
the
have
multiversal hijinks.
That I had no idea that that was.
Hmm. So that's why I'm saying I think she's much better in Daredevil, and she's much better in and the Adam Project I liked it. It was a really good movie. That's where Walter Scobell, who plays Percy Jackson in the Disney Plus series, he like that
Oh,
was his first role in
that
that
was his
movie. So
first. Okay.
yeah, I'd recommend checking it
Interesting.
out. It was a good movie.
Well, next time
Um,
I'm after my 31st viewing of 13 going on 30, I will probably want to watch another Jennifer Gardner movie.
yeah,
So,
yeah, you got time before Deadpool and Wolverine. Those are the
yeah.
so if you're listening, those are your essential watches for Deadpool and Wolverine in this specific order. 13 going on 30, um, Daredevil, Elektra. Even though you will fall asleep, you still have to at least start it and
Mhm.
then watch the Atom Project, and then you're ready for Deadpool and Wolverine.
I really hope of all the like because Deadpool's like his whole thing is being meta. I hope if they're gonna make any meta references, I really hope it's to 13 going on 30 now.
I feel like with Mark Ruffalo in it, and because he's the Hulk, like I feel
Because he's
like
the Hulk.
the
Yeah.
jokes are right there. Like
Right. Absolutely.
so yeah, I guess we'll see. But anyway, we've got a lot of movies to get through. So we're gonna go ahead and that was a very
Let's
long
get
intro.
started.
Yeah. But we're gonna go ahead and get started with our number five picks. And so we'll probably rotate going first each time. So I'll start with my number five pick. Um, I almost had Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning in here because I
Hmm.
really did like it. Um, but it kind of I ended up going with Creed 3 as my number five pick. And this wasn't a movie that I was like in love with. I just saw it. It was solid. It was good. I enjoyed it. And I think the difference is like obviously Dead Reckoning has a lot of nonstop action. And Creed 3 has a lot of action too. But watching the Creed series and seeing how far Adonis Creed has come in his journey just
Hmm.
feels a lot more connected and kind of full circle and like you're watching someone grow up and become into this, amazing person and father. Um while Mission Impossible, like again, you don't really need to see growth from Ethan Hunt's character because it's just kind of like what kind of stunts can I do above this? But
Hmm.
that's kind of the difference. Like I feel like with the Creed series in Creed 3, like we really see the growth of Adonis Creed. We really see him not only go from, this boxer guy that decides to change his whole life into a loving husband and a loving father. And like
Hmm.
all of that growth, and it still had a lot of action because of the boxing.
Right.
Um, Jonathan Majors, like he was fantastic in his role. And
Who was Jonathan Majors? Because I haven't seen Creed 3. So
oh, have you
who
seen the
was
first
Jonathan?
two Creed movies?
No, I've never seen any. I haven't even seen any of the
Okay.
Rocky movies. I have not seen
See,
any boxing
yeah.
movie.
I have not seen the Rocky movies. So I feel like technically I probably shouldn't have like watched the Creed movies, but Ryan Coogler directed the first Creed movie, and
Hmm.
that was the second movie of Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler before they formed this like partnership, like Martin
Hmm.
Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio, like one of those, like how
Right.
directors and actors will form that. And so that's part of why, Ryan Coogler was like, yeah, Michael B. Jordan's got to be in Black Panther. So with that movie, Creed came out in 2015, and then
And then he had.
2018 had Creed 2,
Hmm.
and then we just got Creed 3 last year. Um,
Wow, that's a big gap. 5 years.
yeah, I think partly because of the pandemic kind of affected it. I think they were aiming for 2021, but it was a little bit harder with the pandemic and everything.
Right.
Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie, she stars in the Creed series.
Hmm.
Um, as well as the guy who plays Razor Fist in Shang-Chi has been in the Creed. He played the main kind of like enemy in Creed 2. But
Hmm.
Jonathan Majors plays like a disgruntled old friend of Creed who ends up
Okay.
challenging him. And like obviously all the Creed boxers get like jacked for the role, but
Sure.
man, Jonathan Major, he got so jacked. Like I think this was the first one where you were actually nervous for Michael B. Jordan because he looked bigger in like literally every single way.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh crap. Like he's
He
gonna get
even grew a
knocked
couple
out.
inches taller.
Yeah, somehow. I was like, I don't see how he's gonna win this. So again, it's a very like it's much more of a family movie than it is a boxing movie. It's
Oh,
very
okay.
heartwarming. I remember when I was gonna go see it with my friends, and it was just kind of like a win when we were like, "Hey, you guys want to go see Creed 3?" And she's like, "That's the movie where Michael B. Jordan doesn't have his shirt on for like half the movie, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much all the Creed movies." And she was like,
Yep.
"I'm in."
Let's go.
And her husband was like, I guess I'm going to. So but yeah, no, we had a great time. I just remember really enjoyed it in the theaters. And I think that's just the difference. Like, again, Mission Impossible movies aren't designed to be heartwarming. Totally get it. They're just designed to be like action, action, action. But I think the Creed movie, I think this was just, it was a beautiful conclusion to the trilogy, and I think it was just a great film. So that's why I have it at number 5.
Very cool.
Hmm.
So for my number 5 pick, I have Asteroid City by Wes Anderson.
Okay.
Wes Anderson is one of my favorite living directors right now. I'm always here for whatever kind of weirdness he's gonna put out.
Hmm.
Ever since I first saw my, I think he's one of those directors that you'll never forget the first of his movies that you see, which for me was the Grand Budapest Hotel. That will the color in that film is like the plum is ingrained into my brain. I will never unsee it. I will always associate that color
Yeah.
um with the movie.
Hmm.
Um and I think he does this he has this style that I feel like over time has become so perfected. Like it's he's always had very straightforward storytelling, it feels like, especially in his earlier works, but the style in which he tells it is rather eclectic with the set design and with the way he frames his shots. Everything is always very centered. Every shot feels like it is the focus is not like following the rule of thirds. It is right dead center, the
Yeah.
exact pinpoint of the screen. And it makes everything feel like an interactive like toy world. Like it's, when you played with toys as a kid, like it feels like that has come to life. And he's just
Hmm.
doing this, but with adult storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's but with Asteroid City, ever since his previous movie, The French Dispatch, that was an anthology movie. A lot of different stories thrown together, and it felt like the most Wes Anderson's ever been, because it felt like the eclectic style of his cinematography and his set design bled into the structure of the movie, with all of these little vignettes of storytelling themselves feeling eclectic. And I didn't care for that as much. I prefer the straightforward storytelling of
Hmm.
his earlier works. And so that's why it didn't land for me. So I love that Asteroid City feels to me like it better blends those two. It feels almost like a meta narrative because it's a movie about a play, about like a biopic of a play called Asteroid City. And the structure of the movie, the three acts of the play are the three acts of the movie, but in between you get shots of dramatizations of the author of the play writing the play and casting it, and then also the impact of the play from other people, and then you'll cut back and forth between them. And so in doing so, you have the straightforward narrative of the movie itself, this small like New Mexico town that is holding like a little um a science award show for, not award show, but like a award ceremony for these incredibly gifted high schoolers, and then an alien appears and it's dealing with that. But then but then also you have Jason Schwartzman dealing with the loss of his wife. But then on the outskirts, you see how somebody dealing with loss in their personal life would write about somebody dealing with loss and how those two connect. And so in a way, it feels like Wes Anderson is talking about his own creative process in storytelling. And it's really cool and it's funny in this dry,
Yeah.
like dim way. It's hard to have you ever seen a Wes Anderson movie, Will?
So I watched Asteroid City yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, this is definitely, I see why Ty likes this movie. Because you're
Yes,
right, because like I studied
100%.
cinematography and I was like watching, I was like, yeah, the rule of thirds really doesn't mean anything to Wes
Out the
Anderson.
window. And
It's
I
like, let's
love
just
it.
put this right in the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, and I think like part of the allure of this movie was just seeing all these actors come in, and it feels like Wes Anderson was not only did he have this ensemble cast of like all these stars, but it feels like he really challenges each actor to do something that they haven't done before.
Hmm.
Like in each role, like he was like Tilda Swinton, all right, be normal. And
Yeah.
she's like, what? He's like, no, no, like be normal. She's like, oh, okay, so like White Witch, no, no, no. Like Ancient One, kind,
No,
no, no, no, no.
no, no, no,
Be
no.
normal. Just be a
Just
normal.
be human woman scientist.
Yep.
Go.
And she's like, this is the greatest challenge I've ever faced in my career. But she did it, obviously. Like I feel like that's the point. Like he didn't cast her to be the weird role, which is what people cast her for, you know? He
Hmm.
cast her to do something completely different. Jeffrey Wright kind of played a similar role that he usually does. It wasn't that different from most of his stuff, but I also haven't seen him that much um, to know. But like he did speak a lot. He seemed a lot more frantic than he usually is. Like
Hmm.
in most other films that he's in, like he starred in the James Bond franchise. He usually speaks with like a very calm, kind of steady demeanor. Even if it's in a movie that has a lot of angst in it, like American Fiction, he still is very calm. He's not really frantic. He's just kind of almost serene, even if he's like in distress. But for this movie, you know, it's like everything he said, he was like, like when he was reading all the announcements and stuff about the quarantine and everything.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I definitely see like if you are a Wes Anderson fan, this is definitely the a movie for you.
I
Yeah.
think it won't nothing will ever surpass Grand Budapest for me for purely
Hmm.
nostalgic reasons. Like that is just
Yeah.
it's ingrained emotionally. I think I think this is like to me the perfection of his style
Hmm.
put to screen.
And I
Um
think the only thing I would want to know is because obviously the movie is colored very differently from any other movie out there. Like that's
yes.
just the way Wes Anderson does it.
Hmm.
And
He
my
lives he
question to
lives in
him,
the pastel
yeah,
saturation palette.
right, right. And my question is, did he do that with lighting? Did he do that with
Mm,
camera filters? Or did he just do that in post editing? Or is it a combination of all three? Because you can get that
right.
style by doing all those things. And I'm just curious because, like, sometimes people will put filters on a camera, but like when you do that, that means if you the shot is always going to have that filter on it. So there's no way for
Hmm.
you to take it off or on because you shot it with the filter on it. Same thing
Yeah.
with the lighting. Like that's a permanent choice that you're making that you can't go back and post and redo because you shot it with this filter on the lights.
Right.
So I'd be very curious to know if like those were deliberate choices that he was like, yes, I'm going to make this and I want this lighting to be like this so I don't have to go back and do it in post. Or if he went
Right.
back and edited it in post. Because again, now Wes Anderson has been around so long that he probably like some of his first movies were probably back when you couldn't go back and edit in post, where you didn't
Hmm.
have that option, where all you had were the camera filters or the lighting. So I'd
Hmm.
be very curious to know like if he just stuck with that because that's what he knows and that's what he's done for so long, or if he did it in post.
I will say last thought because I know we need to move on. Just while we're talking about lighting, there's that scene where after the award ceremony where they're all having like lunch in the picnic and it's underneath like the terrace and
Mhm.
there is like the checkerboard lighting pattern. I have never seen a movie use that lighting pattern because it's so disorienting to look at. Yet he some like because like you have splotches of well lit and shaded, and so how do you correct the two to look appealing? I don't think, to my knowledge, I've ever seen a movie use that kind of lighting and use it well and effectively. Like it felt like that was almost a part of the comedy
Yeah.
of it. Like and just I love that it feels like he uses every little aspect of filmmaking into like informing like the decision making and like helping land jokes or like watching just
All
the
right.
characters lit up by this like checkerboard light, it didn't look bad. It just made me laugh.
Yeah, can I mean again, like I know we gotta move on, but like since we're talking about lighting, because it's like, the cinematic shot that you're supposed to do is where you're looking, like if the camera is speaking, if the character is speaking and they're looking at the light and you're at an angle and you're following the rule of thirds, the camera should be pointing at the side of them that's not lit up. So that
Mhm,
way you see that shadow on their face, and
mhm,
that's called like the cinematic shot, right? And if you
mhm.
look closely, you'll see it in every blockbuster movie, pretty much every movie that you see when the character's like trying to make a point or something, you will see that cinematic shot. That's like a rule.
Right.
And Wes Anderson didn't do that once in
Nope.
Asteroid City.
All of his
Everything was like
shots are
evenly lit.
are
It's like,
straight
yeah,
straight on.
yeah,
It's
evenly
I'm
lit,
looking
just
directly at the camera for every shot.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, yeah, I know we gotta move on. But yes, I saw Asteroid City and yeah, I enjoyed it for his eclectic filmmaking style.
Mm.
All right, moving on to number four. So what do you have for number four?
Okay. So for me, I have Greta Gerwig's Barbie. I love this movie was such a treat. And I will say that it was something that I was so nervous for, like going in. Like I wanted it to be good. It's been a while since I felt so strongly that I just want a movie, like please be good. Like I just want this movie to be really good. And
Hmm.
it really feels like it landed. I had not seen any previous Greta Gerwig movie. I'd never seen Lady Bird. I'd never seen the more recent Little Women
Yeah.
that she had done. But this, I feel like it made me instantly a fan. It was great to see a true comedy. Like, when was the last time we had like a comedy be this good or like period come out? Like it feels like comedies have kind of died off from making it to film, or at least like the level that the number that we used to see. It feels like comedy is just something that's added on in the background, but for like a capital C comedy to come out and to be as good and as colorful and as bold as Barbie was, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, the Barbenheimer phenomenon was probably like history, like cinema, like marketing and cinematographers and film. Like 10 years from now, we will be studying Barbenheimer.
Mhm.
And like, how did this happen?
Right.
They will be going back and studying it because it created, because again, 2023 people were still afraid out of the pandemic, like we weren't like totally recovered yet. So
Hmm.
this was a big triumph. I'll admit, the first time I saw Barbie in theaters, I feel like I didn't get it, like the message like went right over my head and I was like,
Hmm.
what? And then we got to talk about it a little bit, and then I saw it back on Max again when it came out, and then I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, now I understand what the movie's really saying by it. And I feel like the message made a lot more sense to me on the second watch. Because I remember the first
Hmm.
time I was just like, I missed something. Like I felt like I missed part of the movie. I was like, something did I didn't go to the bathroom without realizing it. Did I? Did I get out of the
Hmm.
theater? Um,
Hmm.
but it still was. And Ryan Gosling, did he end up winning an Oscar for this?
Oh man, did he?
Because
Let
he
me
went crazy. One of his best performances. Um, I
let
loved.
me look it up.
Okay, yeah, and I loved Simu Liu in it. I loved Ben Kingsley in it. I did not know Ben Kingsley had this much range because he goes from this to playing a genocidal alien in Secret Invasion, which is pretty interesting. After playing Malcolm X just like a couple of years earlier, so um, definitely some stand-up performances.
No,
Obviously,
it was Robert Downey Jr.
oh
who
yeah, for
won Best
Oppenheimer.
Supporting for Oppenheimer.
Makes sense. Did America Ferrera? She won though, right? Did she get Best Supporting
No,
Actress?
no, the winner is someone I will talk about later
Oh, okay. All
for
right.
one of my choices.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, she had a standout performance. Ariana Greenblatt was extremely, and Michael Cera just like randomly popping up. It's like,
So so funny. Just for
yeah,
how little he's in it, and
Right.
how like he contributes so much for like seemingly not doing much at all. It just
Yeah. Yeah. It was yeah, it was like yeah, he didn't really do much, but he ended up contributing so much
Mhm,
to it. So I remember my wife like she was telling me I saw this clip by America Ferrera that like it seems crazy to me, but she was mentioning how like important Barbie was because like in the 1970s, like women couldn't get a credit card.
mhm,
And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's like I didn't even like fathom that idea.
mhm,
But they're like, no, yeah, if you didn't have a man to co-sign, you couldn't get a credit card in the 70s. Meanwhile, Barbie was driving airplane, was a pilot, you know, and a nurse and a doctor who obviously would be able to get a credit card. So it was like, oh wow. Like I had never even like fathomed that because like nowadays, like my wife probably has more credit cards than I do. Like her credit is better than mine. So like I
mhm,
can't imagine a world where like I need her to co-sign for me. You know what I mean? Like
mhm. Yeah.
so yeah, just a very yeah, Issa Rae, that's what I was thinking. Issa Rae, I think I really liked her performance as well, especially when we
Mhm,
got to the end and she realized that like, hey, we can't keep going like this either. We need to make sure the Kens feel like they have a place in Barbie Land too, even if it takes a minute for us to really get there.
mhm.
Okay, so for my number four, I have a movie that it's really a shame that it ended up being such a box office bomb because I absolutely loved it. And I have The Marvels as number four. And this is coming from a guy who did not like Captain Marvel. I didn't like the way that they portrayed Brie Larson's Carol Danvers. I don't think that you got to connect with her character. Like it was kind of she was one of those characters that like I'm not going to use the term Mary Sue because I hate that term. But it was just felt like everything came easy, like super powerful, could do whatever she wanted, was always right, didn't have any flaws, and you can't connect with someone like that. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's like you and like you could see all of the flaws in the character, but it's like she was very confident, very arrogant almost, and it was like you could see all those flaws, but they didn't do anything to her character. You know what I mean? Like she didn't challenge them or anything like that. And so it just that whole movie kind of fell apart for me. And
Right.
even her appearance in Endgame was just kind of like, eh. So like the Marvels, I wasn't totally excited about for a sequel until I saw Miss Marvel. And with Miss Marvel, I felt the plot was a little messy. Like it was hard for me to follow sometimes because it felt like they were doing so much and at the same time not doing a whole lot. But no matter what scene she was in, Amon Villani is an absolute American treasure. And
Mhm.
she captivated the hearts of anybody that, like, I dare you to watch Miss Marvel and not fall in love with Amon Villani. It is not possible. You will fail. You
She
will.
she is easily my favorite part of the
Oh,
Marvel.
yes. Oh, yes. And
Easily.
if there wasn't an actor's strike, I firmly believe if Marvel sent her on a press tour, like they could have if they weren't in the actor strike, this movie would
Mhm.
have at least grossed 500 million because people would have fallen in love with her and wanted to go see her. And
Wow.
so I think the actor strike affected it more than other factors did because a lot of people talk about like, oh, they didn't like the movie because it didn't like Marvel's falling, superhero fatigue. I think the biggest factor in this movie not succeeding was the actor strike. Because at the time, actors couldn't promote their movies. Because remember, it started right when Oppenheimer came out. So they had already finished all their press tours and then they left in the middle of it and Oppenheimer came out and it still was super successful because we had already seen all the huge press that they were doing for it. And the actor
Right.
strike didn't get resolved until the Marvels had been in theaters for like a month or so.
Mhm.
So, but even just besides how great Amon Villani was, I think the entire and I think if you don't see Miss Marvel, you're not gonna love it as much because her family's in it as well, and seeing them interact with Nick Fury, like it's really funny and it's just such an enjoyable moment. Like I thoroughly this might be the most enjoyable moment I had in the theater last year. Like I just enjoyed being there, enjoyed watching it.
Wow.
I was along for the ride. Yeah, and I also felt like they fixed everything I didn't like about Captain Marvel. They gave Carol Danvers a good reason for being away from Earth for so long. They gave consequences to her actions, they gave consequences to her arrogance, and made her have to learn to be more humble because of something she did that caused a huge catastrophe.
Hmm.
Um, and the plot itself made sense. I wasn't expecting them to be able to weave all these storylines together, but Nia DaCosta did in a very short period of time because the movie is probably one of Marvel's shortest at only an hour 45.
Hmm.
I was like, how is the bangle gonna connect to all their light powers and the jump points? But by using the jump points, which is something already established in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it connected well with the Bengals. Makes sense that the Bengals created all the jump points. And because Monica and Carol have light-based powers, Nick Fury asked them to check out the malfunctioning jump points, and boom, they're all connected. And it I think the two things that kind of hold the movie back is it kind of refuses to sit still. Like every single moment is like pretty much action. There's only a couple of moments where Carol like stops and like takes a breath. You know what I mean? Um and like that breakneck pace works really well for Infinity War. And I think this movie could have benefited from just a couple, like the action in it was fine. There was plenty of it. I think it could have benefited from just a few more sit down, like slow up, like just slow yourself. It's okay. Like you got,
Hold up now.
yeah. Like you could have added a 15, like if they added a 15 minutes of more like, emotional, just like talking scenes.
Mhm.
Again, I am not the guy who says a movie needs more talking scenes. I am always action, action, action. But I probably would have added just a couple more talking scenes, just a couple more to kind of slow everything down because it was very extremely fast paced. Um, and then I think the biggest flaw in this movie is definitely the villain. I think like she's almost worse than the Guardians of the Galaxy villain because most people say that Guardians of the Galaxy is amazing, but Ronan kind of holds it back because he's just like generic evil. And like in this case, to me, Zoe Ashton's character, Darben, I understood her motivations and I understood what she was trying to do, and I understood how the Bengal was going to make it happen. I think the problem is just her character came off as very bland and just kind of, I don't even know if one dimensional is the right word, but it's like it was just awkward to see her on screen sometimes. I liked how powerful she was. I loved how they chose a character who would be able to absorb Captain Marvel's powers because when you create a character that incredibly powerful who could potentially rip off Thanos' head, it's like what do you do? Like who's going to be her villain next? And why does she
Right.
even need a team of two other people when she's like the Avengers in one person?
Right.
And again, it's
Can
because
single-handedly solve all of their problems.
right, right. And again, it's because of the Bengal
Mm.
um being able to absorb the powers. And so, and that's what I really love about this movie because like all that ultra power she has, they showed it having a negative consequence because she thought, okay, I got all this power. I'm strong enough to just blow up the Supreme Intelligence, and that's what I'll
Mhm.
do, and I'll end the war, and it'll be fine. And there were unseen consequences for that. Like people died because of that. While the Supreme Intelligence was definitely a bad guy, she didn't stick around to try to help fix the infrastructure. She didn't do any of that. She just said destroy, blast away, and it
Mhm.
kind of helped show that like I said there are consequences to that. So like I said, I think it's definitely the most underrated Marvel movie, especially based upon its box office performance. um
Mhm.
but it's way high up there for me. Like I said, there's and like
Yeah.
I love when plots, like my biggest thing is like plot holes. Like I hate them so much because it takes me
Yeah.
out of everything. So I hated Obi-Wan Kenobi. Um, and I feel like this one didn't really have any. Like I think the explanation on how Carol ignited the sun was a little weak and like, oh hey, well you haven't tried it before. And it was like, what? Um, I feel like a better explanation is like, hey, you could probably reignite it because you have this bangle now, which would have made a lot more sense. So I just kind of pretend that's what she said in my head. Because to me, that just makes
You're retconning the movie in your own
yeah,
head
yeah, yeah.
to make it fit.
Well, that's the only major plot flaw that I really have.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the rest of it was was incredible, and I think especially the end credit scene, having Monica land in the Fox universe, which again, it feels like the directors of Marvel aren't really talking to each other. It feels like they're just going to Kevin Feige and saying, "Here's my idea," and he's like, "Okay, how does this connect to this other thing?" And they're like, "I don't know,
I don't know.
but this is the
You,
way I'm
you
going to do
you
it."
tell me, dude.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, because like that could have played a role in Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's probably not going to. So it's
Hmm.
like it feels like this is not something that can be resolved until uh the Marvels 3, which probably won't happen.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like again, it was a cool thing to do and kind of like weave the stuff together, but it just probably won't end up being a thing. So sorry, I
Yeah.
know I went for a long time on the Marvels, but I feel like it got so much hate. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I don't get it because it was a great movie. Like, I'm not gonna talk. I don't want to talk a lot about like the culture war and people labeling stuff as woke, but it's like this movie was not that. It was just an enjoyable movie. Like, it's yeah. But again, I feel like the actor strike is what impacted it the most.
Yeah. I think the charm is what holds it on the most for me. I certainly I didn't have as much of a connection as you did to it, but I get being taken by so much of the main cast, especially Iman Vellani's like charisma
Hmm.
throughout.
And I think the best part is like Aman Vellani, like she kind of wanted to be an actress, but she wanted to be Miss Marvel. Like that's
Hmm.
how she got cast in the role because Miss Marvel has been her favorite superhero for like her entire life. And she was gonna go to like college or something. She's gonna go to college to study something completely different. Like acting wasn't even on her radar. But then when this
Hmm.
opportunity came up to play Miss Marvel,
Hmm.
her parents took her to do it, and I'm like, again, she fully embodies the character, and I'm there almost hasn't been a better casting decision in MCU than Amon Vellani because again, like this, the actress that plays Miss Marvel is more concerned about being Miss Marvel than she is about like being an actress. You know what I mean? Like it feels
Yeah.
like it's not a performance for her either. Like this is just her.
Her her heart is in it
Oh yeah.
100%, and it
Oh yeah.
shows in the performance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, someone was bringing up a pretty funny point that's like, okay, yeah, so to watch the Marvels, you got to watch WandaVision, kind of Secret Invasion, Miss Marvel, and Captain Marvel. But then you also got to watch Endgame. But then in order to watch Endgame, you got to so like there's also a lot of lore to like push onto it, and I
Hmm.
think that didn't help either because all the Disney Plus shows that go into it, like it's hard because like a lot of people haven't watched them. Like, have you watched Miss Marvel?
No,
Yeah.
but again, I don't think you even necessarily need that to appreciate the
Yeah.
how much everyone cares about it.
Yeah, like you didn't need to watch like Creed 1 and 2 to like Creed 3. Like my wife still liked it. And I think you could still like the Marvels, but it's again because there's so much into it when people think that you have to, they're like, "Oh, I got to watch the Marvels and WandaVision." Nah. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to go. Like I think
Hmm.
that might have contributed as well. Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh well. Oh well. It'll live forever in my heart. So,